Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to the Empowered Harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a very important key concept to really moving beyond emotionally manipulative or hurtful relationships with toxic people, emotionally manipulative like the cluster Bs, like the antisocial people who are sociopathic or psychopathic. And that is really coming to terms with and coming to grips with not being afraid to close the loop, not being afraid to break this cycle of going back to this similar type of mistake or this similar type of event or situation which had propelled you into this type of relationship to begin with. Perhaps reducing your standards, perhaps tolerating mistreatment. It is getting into the mindfulness state that's saying, okay, now I know and I can identify when this person is, and realizing that not all people are going to be like that, and I can close the loop rather than keeping it open-ended, feeling like, I'm going to be left and, draping myself through the coals for the next 6 months, 12 months, a year, because really, the longer you prolong through lack of awareness, what had occurred. And of course, the longer you were in the relationship or the longer their impact, the longer you can kind of feel off course or, out of course with your life or out of step with your life purpose or where you want to be in terms of attracting relationships. But it is understanding what keeps kind of the same cycle perpetuated. And oftentimes it is those defense mechanisms, which are meaning those behaviors, thoughts, and emotions which keep us in a self-protected state. In other words, the self-medicating, the drinking too much, the drugging too much, the overeating, the poor behavioral controls, like the anger out of control or the spending out of control, the other sort of gambling, the addictions to other events or situations which can keep you stuck. These are all examples of defense mechanisms or ways that the limbic brain, the ego, will try to protect and prevent you from feeling emotional pain or feeling certain emotional states which you are trying to protect yourself with. And oftentimes it is because there are trigger states which are keeping these defense mechanisms in place. In other words, I always overdrink when, or I go to drugs when, or I overeat when. I tend to go gambling when, or I tend to overspend or over debt or compulsively do this or compulsively do that when. It is knowing your patterns and then being willing to break the pattern and to see on a emotional as well as a logical basis, this is not good for me. I can change. I want to change. And then having leverage over yourself, which means that you have personal power and the pain is great enough. In other words, you've hit rock bottom enough to say, okay, never again is now. I am done. I'm done with the overdrinking. I'm done with the overspending. I'm done with seeking this type of relationship to satisfy an external need of me. Perhaps that is not really what I need, and it's coming to those aha moments. I don't need to compulsively debt. I don't need to compulsively eat. I don't need to compulsively drink. Those compulsions are keeping me unhappy. In other words, it's really being able to connect the dots there and then seeing how perhaps you are, and then building awareness into some of your behaviors and saying, okay, it's time for me to make a change. It's time for me to become open to opportunity and stop that sort of the drink from drinking me, the drug from drugging me. Stop that external locus of control having internal over your internal mindset and emotional set. And saying, okay, it's time for me to become responsible and accountable, and I can create a limit on those hurtful behaviors. And it's knowing what is hurtful, what is negative to you, and just saying, okay, it is time for me to stop. That is not going to be positive for me. That's going to decay my emotions. That's going to decay me physically. That's going to keep me unhappy. It's going to keep me in, kind of keeping my head down and not looking at the brighter side of things and just walking the walk. Sometimes you need to have that leverage and just begin to move in the direction of your dreams and without fully knowing what they are, but then closing that cycle, closing that loop, and in other words, stop edging for the rut. It's kind of like a car that's just trying to get out of a rut or a well-worn path. It's going out of the rut and then being able to get onto new ground. So you need to take yourself to some new ground where you feel like the groove isn't well-worn. What I call, it's automatic responses, knee-jerk reactions. I tend to always do this. If you find yourself always and perpetually, it's time those are the areas where you want to stop the groove from getting too deep within you. It's creating and embracing neuroplasticity, where it's saying, okay, I'm open to new opportunities, I'm open to new routines, and I'm going to move in the direction of the new routine, even if I have not done this yet. This is new, but it will help me to close the loop to the pain. It'll help me to close the loop to the poor behaviors. It'll help me to close the loop to the thought disorder. It'll help me to close the loop to the emotional disorder. I won't be dwelling in the past. I'll be dwelling in the present. I'll be dwelling in the future. And I'm ready to say now, when I've decided that I've had enough. But if you don't make that decision, it can go on for months, years, and decades where you stay in that plateau, you stay stagnant. And it is closing that loop and realizing that there is a loop to be closed that can help you to make that decision. It's saying, wow, I've perpetuated those defense mechanisms to keep me stuck. These are the ways of a teenager, and I'm an adult now. These are the ways of a fool, and I am wiser now. These are the ways of the ignorant, and I am smarter now. And I'm going to, not only be afraid of a failure, but also oftentimes what people are afraid to make decisions is that they are afraid not of failure, they are afraid of success, because it's like, well, if this, then what next? If this, well, then what next? Well, trust in the universe that you can cross that bridge when it gets there. In other words, when this happens, then I'll be able to take it easy and I can rest and then I can move on, and that I will begin to be able to chart my course as I see fit when I am in a state of mindfulness, in a state of being control. And oh boy, this feels good when I'm in control now. I like this a lot better. And it's beginning then to say, I enjoy the feeling of change. Rather than it being scary, lonely, whatever, however you're framing it, use the cognitive tool of reframing and saying, this is new, this feels good. This is different, this feels okay. This feels right, I like this. It's beginning to make those assessments internally and use some new patterns of self-talk so that you can begin to embrace these new decisions and emotional states, because it's the accumulation of experience and repetition that will help you to engage in the new emotional feeling state. And it does take at least 30 days consecutively for you to learn, to break a new habit and to learn a new one. Just like if someone's going to stop smoking, or even stop drinking, or stop spending, or the different things, it needs to be kept in place for 30 days. And you need to have sort of emotion and reason enough for the decision. In other words, it can beyond a shadow of a doubt why this needs to be done. I know that this needs to be done, and I am committed. I am in 100%. Not 90%, not 85%. I am in 100%. So you have to find that 100% space within yourself and to be committed. It's not, well, I'm kind of interested in changing. I'm curious about changing. If you stay in the interested and curious state, basically, you're not going to get very far, if at all. When you're committed, then you know that you know that you know that you know, and you have that certainty and that confidence and that self-compassion, and you're no longer engaging in the self-sabotaging downward spiral thoughts, behaviors, or emotions, and you find that you're really beginning to make a little bit of traction within yourself. And as I say, you need to be able to get your emotional sea legs. You need to be able to get your stomper boots on and being able to put one foot in front of the other and do it at your pace, but make sure that your footing is firm. And it might be a little bit, wobbly if you're going up or going down, but you need to have that strong foothold. and then be conscious of that alignment with your decision making. Be conscious of, this is a right turn versus a left turn. I'm going to engage in POD thinking, positive orderly direction thinking, and I'm going to avoid those episodes of negative orderly direction thinking. I call them NOD thinking, where they set you back. You cave into temptation. You go for the drunk. You go for the drug. You go for the debt. You go for the lower job. You go for the lower night or weekend out. You tend to continue to backslide. And then you're in what I call the recovery mode. Oh, why did I do that? Why did I let this happen? And then you're, just trying to make up for lost ground through poor decision. And it's knowing that every day I'm making better decisions and operating out of better judgment. And it takes self-compassion and closing that loop to really get there. It's a whole new state. It's a whole new world. It's a whole new you. And that is what's exciting. When you repeat that again and again, and you can go, wow, I have come a long way. I'm doing it now. Just like when a child first, learns to, ride a bike without the training wheels, it's like, look, mom, no hands. It's really being in that hand-free zone where you can then really balance yourself, balance your schedule, balance your emotions, and know that then you are attracting yourself better opportunities, people, and experiences which are more in tune with that, and you won't begin to feel like that loop is open to abuse was perpetuated in the past, so you are no longer feeling threatened or endangered by those harmful, toxic relationships. In fact, they tend to bounce off of you. It is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. And I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.